Good morning and welcome to a morning practice. I'm Simon Greer. This is Tom Scott, the co-founder and chairman of the Nantucket Project, and we're joined by Tontra Love. Tontra is a teacher out in California, often, I think many times recognized as like one of the best teachers in all of California. She was at the Nantucket Project last year and was a total home run superstar. And for me, just by way of introduction, I've been watching my kids distance learn and study from home, and how hard their teachers are working to make it work and deal with their own children at home. And I said, we have to have a teacher on. We have to have a teacher on. And everyone in the Nantucket Project was like, Tontra Love, obviously. That's who we have to have on. So we're super excited to have you here today.
Thank you. And only in Oakland.
Well, I'll nominate you for one of the best teachers in all of California.
Thank you.
So let's start off with gratitude, just the expression of things we're grateful for. And Tontra, we'll go to you first. What's something that you're feeling grateful for today?
Well, I definitely am grateful to be actually in Oakland, California. I feel like our county shut down pretty quickly, which is helpful. And I'm grateful that I still have things like Zoom to stay in touch with family and kids. And even though it's hard, I'm really grateful for this time with my senior it was going to be a year where I didn't see him much, that he was going to do a lot more socializing. But I think everyone is realizing how grateful we are to be together, to be healthy. And it's a nice priority change, I think, for our world in that way, of the silver lining.
Thanks. Tom, how about you?
I'm sorry to do this to you, Tontra, but I'm grateful to you. I am. We talk about sort of what we do, and what we talk about is we're about matters of the head and matters of the heart. Like, that's what we want to do well. And the thing that unites them, is truth. And it's a reflection of what is, or a wonder at what is, which is that it's hard to know what is, right? It's not easy to know, like, what is truth? Again, I'm saying, to be clear, I mean a reflection of reality, not lying or not lying, but a reflection of reality. And I think that's what your participation at TNP last fall brought, was like a really good, granular, nuanced description of what is. And people want that. They want that. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Tom. The thing I'm feeling grateful for, and last night was the first night of Passover for people in the Jewish community, and we did a Zoom Passover Seder, which obviously we'd never done before. Maybe not obviously, but obviously. And it was the best Seder we've had in years. Like, people shared more honestly and openly. We weren't so bound to how we're supposed to do it. Like, people brought in videos and songs, and we have a healthcare professional from Johns Hopkins who's in our family. And so he talked about what it's like on the front lines in the hospital. And it was just like relevant to today and personal, and not so stuck in rituals that can be limiting. And so it was really like, I never thought, oh, Passover would be better over Zoom, but last night it really was. And so I'm feeling really grateful for that. All right, let's sit. We'll meditate together for a few minutes.
We're going to start with a brief sound meditation. So just soften your gaze. You can even look down towards the floor. Notice your breath for a moment, anywhere in your body where it's easy for you to notice it. So that could be at the base of the nostrils. It can be gently moving in your chest. You might even feel the breath moving all the way down into your low belly. Allow your attention to float from sound to sound. And all together, I'm gonna invite in a long breath through the nose for 4 counts. So breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through the mouth. Good. One more like that. Breathing in again, 2, 3, 4, and exhale through the mouth. This time, we're gonna exhale with a long extended ah, just on one tone. So your tone might not match mine. So breathing in nice and full. Thank you so much.
Hey, Tantra, sometimes when I meditate, it gets like super quiet and sometimes it's really loud. And I'm just thinking, like, for a teacher, like everything, it's like kids and so much. Do you do anything to help you like quiet your mind or anything like that?
Well, when I was in school, we did mindfulness a bunch of times a day, and I had a bell. And I think anytime we had a big transition, I would do that with the kids. And until I did it as a teacher, I never did it for myself. And then since we're distant learning, I have a video of me doing it that's on my Google Classroom. And while we were doing it this morning, I realized I have not done any of that. And actually, like, my husband has been getting mad at me because we came off of spring break on Monday. And I think most teachers worked through break and supported each other. And he said to me, "You've been doing like 14-hour days teaching, like you have to stop." But I think it's just, there's so much new stuff to learn, and it feels really nice to do that. I try to like make sure I go out and walk my dog, but I have not done very much self-care since we have been at home.
Yeah, I know, and Tom's talked about this before, but it's like partly we started the show because all of our routines got capsized, right? And so if you usually had a practice, it's hard to maintain it because you don't have the regular schedule. And so we've found this show has helped us, like, just to keep our own practices going. Like, I know I'm going to have this half an hour. Like, I'll count on that, even if I don't get anything else all day.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, you said you've been working 14-hour days, which I believe. I've been so struck watching my kids' teachers that there's the craft of teaching, and now there's like the craft of teaching online, which is like a whole other, you didn't go back to school and get a new degree in that teaching. How are you figuring it out?
I'm probably a bad example because I am a huge perfectionist. I'm that person that people say I have the good kind of OCD, and I'm probably my worst critic. But it's especially good in situations like this, which are high stress, because I felt like I was always comfortable with technology, but I'm clearly not a techie, and I am learning through this process that I am much more tech literate, because part of my thing is like, we have a new platform or something we should try that I find out is more user-friendly for families, and I can't let it go until I completely understand it. And since a lot of them are new platforms, everybody's learning. And so I'm discovering new things like daily headaches, pain in my arm, because I was not a big screen person to begin with. And I actually had gotten my families to really limit the screen time for little kids. And now everybody is on screens all the time. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy. I feel like I'm like, oh, if I can master it or figure it out, then I can take a break. But I feel like as soon as I as soon as I start to get a handle on something, everything changes. And then there's a new thing coming down the pike. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I'm not a good example. I feel like I'm fighting for, unions are working really hard to protect families and teachers. And I am a big champion on that, and I can fight for everyone else, but I don't do it for myself very well. Did I answer the question? I feel like I'm rambling.
You did very well. Very well.
Beautifully.
Very well.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was just going to say, Simon knows this, but my father's a teacher, and he's 83, and didn't even have a laptop. I bought him a laptop. That's not true. He bought himself a laptop. I said I would, and he said he wouldn't let me. And it's been hard, for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in your case, it's the kids. You have young kids that were doing this on the other end of it. In my father's case, you have an old man who's on the teaching end of it. And so it's been this really intense challenge for him, and the fatigue that goes along with it, because it's tiring learning all this stuff and the stress of it all. He doesn't hear very well. So, there's that sort of added element to it. But it's been really interesting to watch my father, who, by the way, finally is very clear on the fact that he cannot leave the house. He has breathing problems. And so he's truly isolated. He's with my mom, which helps. But it's been a really interesting period for him.
Tantra, I was thinking when you were talking that in a way we need to help you get the self-care you need, because I was thinking what you were saying, Tom, it's like she could have been describing how you would talk about your own business, right? Like, I'm a perfectionist. 100%. Tom would say, everything's unknown. Once I think I figured something out, then the whole world changes. I just feel like whenever we check in, Tom's like, we just don't know. Like, it just keeps changing. It just keeps changing. So I thought Tantra's offering you like great advice. And so how could we help you also?
Well, I mean, her husband offered the best advice of all, which I've heard. I mean, the problem that I run into is that I know I will break. And the challenge is when to step back from the break. And for me, it was last weekend. So today is day 28 remote for us, by the way. 4 weeks of this so far for our company. And the first 21 days, I didn't stop, around the clock, 7 days. And a lot of it was some of the stuff that you're describing. Like, we had to reinvent our business, meaning what we literally do as a business, number one. And then number two, how we do it. Zoom became this huge thing. And, and there is a part of me that I do love it. I love, learning it too. And it hurts all at the same time. So it's been a real journey. So yeah, Simon, I was exactly thinking that as she was describing it. Yeah.
I could go on asking you questions, Tantra, so I'll ask you one more and then we'll grab our journals. Do you notice the, I don't know about the demographics of your students, but this feels like a moment where kids who have more can really thrive in this moment, and kids who have less just get pulled even further behind. And I wonder if you're seeing that in your students, and as a teacher, how you might be managing it or have insight into it, or where it's challenging you.
Yeah, I mean, I think every classroom has a range, and I look across the district as well as, the nation and the state mandates things around education. There are kids who don't have technology. There are kids who we've gotten them some technology, but maybe they have unpaid bills and there's not hotspots yet. So going completely digital isn't working for a lot of them. And I am very lucky that I have been able to have some kind of contact, whether it's phone or email or digital, with my entire class. And I Zoomed with my parents the other night, and I was really shocked because I got really kind of choked up about, parents saying things like, we tell our kids they're going to kindergarten next year and they just are in denial because we get no closure, I think, at every age. But I don't get to say that kind of goodbye. It's really, when I Zoom with my class, I mostly have to mute them all or else they can't hear me. And then we have these moments, but that's not a way to run it. And when I think my driving force and the reason that I kill myself to do what I'm doing is because, like, I have this strand called A Life Like Mine, where every kid gets to share their life. And when we closed schools, I still had 6 kids to go. So my thing has been, how do I still give that to those kids? How do we still have that? And so everything I do and everything I run is all about that piece. How do I still have that connection? How do those kids get to feel special? And the last couple of days I've been prepping like hands-on stuff, like end of the year portfolios. Like I had a day to get everything that I could out of my classroom, to pass it on to the kids. And right now I'm making gifts for the family, and those kind of things feel really normal. But I just think that I keep talking to teachers that can't reach certain families, and there's certain families that I maybe get contact with like every 2 weeks, and that is really, really hard because I just want to know they're okay. And my message to families is that these are unprecedented times, and it's not, I know that we all need schedules and routines, but I don't think our brains are wrapping around that it's not business as usual. Like a lot of kids aren't getting anything, or they're getting what they can. And I think those things are important. I keep trying to reiterate to families, like all the digital stuff, that's not important. Are your kids reading? Are they going outside? Are they playing? Are they building? Like those are the things that are most important to us. And I think teachers everywhere, that's the message we're trying to get across, and then say, yep, and here's all these extra resources you can use. But those are the things that are more important to me. Those are the things that I worry about. And I just feel extra grateful that I have been able to be in contact with all of my family. Sorry, talk to adults and I get all choked up.
I know. I think we all really appreciate you being, as Tom said, telling the truth in that way. I think I imagine as a teacher, you're holding it together for the kids all the time, so that makes sense to me. I was thinking about our kids, my son's teacher, and the way it is on Google Classroom or whatever they're using, like everyone has to mute, right? So she can talk, but she can't then see everyone and can't feel the energy. And I think if you're a teacher, just like I think if you're a musician or whatever, like you're always in a dance with the audience or with the community. And that if you cut that off, it's like, what am I teaching to? What am I, is that,
yeah.
All right, let's pull out our journals. We'll just write for a couple minutes and then we'll share a little bit. All right. Wrap up. You're both writing away. Tantra, anything you wrote in there that you're comfortable sharing with us?
Sure. My other passion way before all of this used to be writing, and I rarely do it. I just wrote that I can't stop because if I do, I sometimes worry that I will be consumed by all the things I fear. In public, I look for and voice the silver linings, but in private, I worry and I don't sleep because I'm always concerned about those that I love. But maybe that in and of itself is the silver lining. It's the love that's most important, and I'm grateful that that is the feeling and the sentiment that lingers in my mind and in my heart.
Oh.
Can you read that end part one more time? Can I just hear that one more time?
Yeah. Maybe that in and of itself is the silver lining. It is the love that's most important, and I'm grateful that that is the feeling and the sentiment that lingers in my mind and heart.
Tom, anything you wrote in your journal you want to share coming off of that?
Yeah, so Neil Phillips's father. Do you know Neil, Tantra? I don't know if you know Neil. I don't know if he interviewed Susan Rice this year at TNP.
Okay, if I saw his face, because I'm much better with face.
Yeah. So Neil runs a charter school for boys of color down in Florida. And Neil's father, imagine the sweetest man you've ever met. That's Neil's dad. Neil's dad died on Tuesday, not from COVID. And sorry. So as you were speaking, I couldn't help but think of Neil, because basically it's love. That's it. That's the whole answer. Why does his school exist? Love. Why is his school good? Love. Why are the kids' lives improving? Love. That's the answer. So as you were speaking, and I was, thinking about the things you were saying, like, why are you doing 14-hour days? Love. Why did a tear come to your eye? Which was funny because, these screens are kind of lame. I could see it. Even with this crappy resolution. Well, what is that tear? That's love. That's what that is. So I was writing, like, her passion is love, her service is love, and then I wrote in capital letters, her name is love. But first thing I wrote is I'm dedicating this, what I'm writing, to Neil Phillips, because his father died.
Wow, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tantra. It's interesting. I was in my own journaling. I was struggling with. I mentioned this on the show a couple of days ago. I've started each morning a new practice that I think of 3 people who I haven't been in touch with for a while, and I try to reach out, shoot them a note, just see how they're doing. And I was having this kind of, a little bit of a bittersweet feeling of like, I don't have a really tight friend group. Like, my friends tend to congregate around work. Like, those are the people I spend the most time with, or the people I work with. And this time, because we're home and I'm not traveling and there are less meetings, like I've carved out more time to reach out to them. And I was thinking, is that it? Like, I'm 51. Is that the story of my life, that I didn't have a close friend group? Like, I don't have a best friend. I've got my wife, but outside of my family, I don't have a best friend. And I thought, will that change as a result of this? Is that an observation I'm making, that I now want to do something different? Or will in this life, I will have ended up, like, I know a lot of people, but I don't have a tight long-term friend group. So it was interesting. I was just thinking about how love informs that. Like, I love my family and work hard to keep us together. But what about that next group of people I love? Not the public work in the world, but that private kind of community. And that I was just reflecting on not having it, not feeling that tight or that intact to me. So, yeah.
Simon, can I share an image with you?
Yeah.
I'd love you guys just to look at this. Now, Tantra, I just want to say in advance that this is about fathers and sons, but it could just as easily be about mothers and sons, or mothers and daughters, or fathers and daughters. I just think it's such a beautiful image. And as you were speaking, Simon, what I was thinking is, we're at a time in our life where that's our job. Like, there's our job. There's our primary function. And I think part of it is that it doesn't leave a lot of room to do that. You know, there's not a lot of room left to be the kind of friend you may have been at one time, or the kind of friend you might be again. I'm not saying it's gone, but I'm saying it's challenged by, I mean, I think the way that image sort of outlines, like, that you take your soul and you give it. And I think around this age, I'm giving it to my parents, I'm giving it to my children. Tantra, you're giving it to your students, you're giving it to your family, I'm giving it to my job. Like, I am giving. We are giving. We're at a time in our life where we're giving, and there's not that much room left, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I will say that in the teacher world, there's this whole idea of filling your bucket. And what we tell the kids is, that is the feeling you feel, that like you're giving your pieces away, but that the more you give, actually, the more you're receiving. And I think when I talk about like these fears that I have, and then I can reflect, I realize I'm overwhelmed by the love that I get back. And it's a different kind of feeling, that you can have that emptiness and that fullness at the same time. Or at least that's what I hope, is that we are filling each other up.
I think letting that in, you know, like, it can be expressed to you, and then can you take it in?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and notice those little gestures, like when my 8-year-old, when she grabs my hand as we're walking along the street or whatever, just like feeling that that's love, right? That like love and trust. And so, Tantra, and I think you talked about this last year too, but you mentioned A Life Like Mine, the project you do. Can you just explain a little more about what that is? I was thinking, like, every human should have a chance to tell their story the way you help your students tell their story, if I'm remembering it right. And I just wonder if you would say another word about it.
Yeah, it's just every student gets a week to share who they are. And I have like a packet that has like, you know, that they can fill out with like, on the day you came home, and a couple years throughout your life. And then they tell us about their favorite food and book and color and story. And then their families share and read to us. And sometimes extended families come in. And they bring something to share every day, and kids ask them questions, and we make them a poster, like you can see behind me. This is ours for this week. He likes Mario Brothers. So digitally, all the kids have been drawing pictures of Mario for him. And then I will compile that, and we make a book with their name, and we each do a page, which we're also trying to do virtually. And then I send all that stuff home, and we have a dance party for their favorite song. And every family and every kid makes it their own. And right now I'm trying to compile all of these things into their annual portfolio, so I can drop these off at the doorsteps where many families have volunteered to come pick them up as well. But yeah, it's my favorite part of being a teacher, is the Life Like Mine.
Your invention?
I mean, I think most teachers do like a star student. And there's these DK books that are beautiful. And there was one titled A Life Like Mine, and I realized I wanted to call it that. And then me and one of my best friends, Leah, we kind of ran with it. When we were teaching together, and we're still teaching together, and we both do it, and we call it that. And I think from families we hear like that is the most important part. And I think everyone is heartbroken about distant learning, but I think that particular piece was like really, really hard. And I'm grateful that we've figured out a way to kind of compensate for the fact that we're not together.
Right. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. anything else either of you jotted down, or anything else we've talked about that you want to reflect on for another minute together?
I would just add one thing to what you just said, Tantra, which is we call them neighbor stories, sort of. No, we call them neighbor stories for sure. um, but it's sort of like a life like mine. So that's what it is. And we always talk about, that's what you did at our event. You told a neighbor's story. You know, you gave us a little taste of what I'm interpreting as a life like yours to us. And it's, and on a certain level, it's, and I'm guessing it's not as much this with the kids, but share your pain, because we all got it. And, you know, I think we find love through that. You know, I think it's not the only way, of course, and it's not just about sharing pain, but I think too often we think that sharing our pain is not what people want. And I think it is what people want. And it's certainly in part. And I think that's what sort of starts to break down the barriers that exist between us, is that if you understand their pain, which again, you did that. And joy, you did. You definitely brought both. But you made it easy for us to identify the pain. In fact, you did it better than anybody that I've ever seen do it. I'm sorry I keep lauding you with all these compliments, but it's true. I mean it. Anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think one of the things I really miss, my other second favorite thing, is class meetings. And in my class, I have a happy rock and a sad mad rock. And we pass the sad mad rock around, and kids can pass, but they just say something that upset them. It could be at school, at home. It could have like happened years ago, or they might say the same thing. And then we wash all those bad feelings in water. And then we pass around the happy rock, and then we wash that in water to kind of make sure we're not putting bad water back out into the world. And I haven't totally figured out how to recreate that. The kids, 5-year-olds, can't sit there digitally and have the patience to listen to everyone like they did live. But I have drop-in office hours that start next week, and I think that that's where I'll get to do that one-on-one. I think especially with the kids who can't, it's too hard for them to sit with the whole class in Zoom and have opted out of that. I think the one-on-one times will be really good for them.
Yeah, it's such a responsibility, and you obviously do it so gracefully, but making space for each little human to be seen and to express whatever is true, right? The good and the bad, and to receive it, right? Not try to fix it or control it or alter it, but just receive it and let them feel seen, right? And heard, feels like one of the great gifts that you give them. And it's an inspiration to me as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Tantra, which A, you can say, I don't want to answer that, or B, you can answer it, of course, in any way you like. Are you happy?
Yeah. I've had periods where I wasn't, so I can definitely see that. And I feel like I'm a huge empath, so I take on other people's worries, but I also take on their joys. And I think the older I get, and also the reflection that you see of yourself in your children and in my students, those things bring me joy. And I think part of my teaching is giving kids things that I didn't have. Maybe I didn't have them or didn't have access to them in a way that I think would have made life easier. Just like in the fact that, like, for your own children, you want to shield them so they don't have to go through things, but that those struggles make us stronger. I feel like I'm giving to my kids the things that I needed to be a complete whole adult, because I think that we teach each other to hold things in, to not be honest, and then we expect kids to do all those things, and we're not good role models. And I realized that we can still be kind and honest about things that hurt. And my 3 rules in the classroom are: be safe, be kind, and try your best. And I always ask them, is it safe? Is it kind? Is it respectful? And I feel like those things ring more true for me every year, the longer I teach, and I do that with kids, because it's helping me to be a better person and a happier person.
Tanja, you just hit on this thing that is like one of my like biggest conundrums. So maybe you'll have an answer for me, and it would like solve this whole thing for me. That question you just framed of, I know the hard things I went through as a kid helped make me who I am, and I will do anything I can to shield my kids from having to go through those things. But then I know that cheats them of the things that made me who I am. But why would I let them go through pain if I can avoid it? Like you named that so succinctly. Have you figured that out?
No, I mean, I think I stumble through it constantly. And like you'd have to interview my boys to see what they think, but I realize that my husband and I just start telling that, there's this fine line between community responsibility and shame. Like, I don't want to guilt them into things, but to get them to do things, but I also want to be honest with them in a certain way. And, it's a different conversation I have with a friend than I do with my own children. But what I realize is I've shared and been more open about my own experiences of things that were hard for me, that I feel like can draw parallels because they're experiencing things that I haven't, or in a different way. And then I tell them just how it makes me feel. And I never know if those lessons that I'm giving them or those talks that we have are working, but then in their darkest moments and in their celebratory moments, when they and you take that moment, like on my birthday, the things that they said to me, or when they're have hit rock bottom for something and they open up, in those moments, I realize, all those things have resonated with them in whatever way they need to. And so I try not to stop them from having that experience, but I try to explain what my fears are about it. And that's big things, little things, about the procrastination of what school you're going to choose, and then realizing I haven't had my senior year ever stripped from me. I don't really know what that's like. I can only imagine. And so then I back off. So, on lots of different levels. So I don't know if that's an answer, if that solves it. That's just how I stumble through it.
The reason, Simon, that I brought it up was because when I was hearing you describe your process and your life, Tantra, and Tom Shadyac brought this up the other day, Simon, when he said, he talked about the pursuit of happiness or the practice of happiness. What you were describing is what a practice of happiness looks like. That it is not, it's about a passionate giving of yourself to others. Like that's where happiness comes from. And it sounds corny and it sounds simplistic, and yet it's true. Like you observe it enough times. So as you were speaking, I thought, that's what happiness looks like. I'm going to ask her, because I'm doing my science exam. Like, am I right? Am I wrong? Is it true? Is it not? And I think, and so I was glad to hear you answer the question the way you answered the question. And then, the other thing you were just talking about, I'll never forget, way back when Joseph Campbell did the what's his name? Whoever he did that TV show with, Bill Moyers. He and Bill Moyers in the early 90s did a show together, and they were talking about the hero's journey. And the bottom line is that when Luke Skywalker goes to become the Jedi, he flies to this terrible looking planet he lands in a swamp, and he meets this really not that attractive, short, strange man who's going to teach him how to become humble, is what he's going to teach him. And guess how you do it? Pain's part of it. Like pain is just part of the deal. And so the hero's journey is like in front of all of us. And as it relates to our children, I do think that doing our best is the best we can do, and it won't be perfect. It's just not going to be. I don't have the answer to your question either, Simon, and I don't pretend to, but I am somewhat, maybe it's made somewhat easier by the fact that it is a fact that my children will struggle through their own hero's journey, and that's life. I think that's just how that's going to go.
Yeah, and we're humans, and every emotion is natural and a good thing. Like everybody feels angry, everybody feels scared, everybody's not happy all the time. And I think acknowledging that we all feel that's all healthy and normal, and that we're not alone, I think is a huge piece. And I think the more I learn how to teach those social emotional skills to young children, the more I learn about it for my own self. That is another gift that teaching has given me.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both for taking a shot at my question. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us, Tantra. As always, it was great to have you and to learn from you. So thank you. Keep teaching and take care of yourself, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks to both you guys.
Bye,
See you,
Tantra.
Tantra. Good to see you again.
Yeah, bye.